All right, in this lesson, we're going to talk about CI/CD and scheduling with the ultimate goal of creating automated workflows using our project. And the way we're going to do this is through GitHub Actions. Essentially, it allows you to do different things, run different actions and commands based on some triggers. So in this case, let's say we commit to a project or we make a merge request, and then that's going to trigger some sort of workflow that we determine. So for example, on a push event, so when something is pushed, it's listening for that activity, and then it's going to spin up a container or a virtual machine, a virtual runner, and do whatever you want. So think of it as an abstracted runner to do it in the cloud. And in this case, it will check out your repository, so it'll have access to your code, and then run a couple different steps. And a detailed dive into GitHub Actions is outside the scope of this training. But ultimately, because dbt is a code-based product and we just run commands like we saw to do what we need it to do, we can say, okay, when something is about to be merged, run these certain commands before we merge it. And we can double check that in real time, nothing is breaking. So it's a really great catch. And so let's take a look at how that works. So what we're going to do is we're going to start here on GitHub. So go to your GitHub repository and we'll go to this step actions here. There's a lot that are set up with templates to do certain things. In our case, we're going to keep it very simple. There's a lot you can do and customize with dbt and GitHub Actions, but we just want to get it to run and we'll do a build command. So let's go ahead and do simple workflow and just say configure. Now what this did by default, it's not committed yet, but within your project, it added a new subdirectory called .github with a workflows directory, and then it's a YAML file. Ultimately, all this is a YAML file that we're configuring. Remember, YAML is really important in a lot of new technologies. So let's just call this CI, continuous integration, .yaml. It's going to go directly to main. And again, I'm not going to go into what all of this stuff means. It's too much for this training. The first thing I'll do is delete all the comments so we can see exactly what we're working with. What this is saying, this first part, is when do you want it to run? And there's a lot of documentation on, you can decide what you want to do. In this case, we're saying when anything is pushed to main and whenever there's a pull request to main. So why don't, for the sake of this, we'll just say on pull requests to the main branch. You could add different branches in here if you wanted. Workflow dispatch means manual. Essentially, you can manually trigger this run. And then we have jobs. And in this case, we have one job called build. What it runs on, this is the virtual runner. It's going to run on an Ubuntu latest. Ultimately, we're going to trigger dbt to run on this virtual runner here and use the code that's part of the pull request. And this is getting back to that point that dbt can be run at any point and the outcome should always be the same. So that's going to be true in this case, and that's why we're able to do it this way. So here we have a couple steps. This is indicating that we're going to use the current repository that's in being tested, that's being run here. So in the case of the pull request, it would be that pull request branch, whatever it is there. And then we can run some commands here with the run. Each thing gets a name. So ultimately, I'm going to copy and paste something in here, and I'll walk through exactly what it means and what we're going to do with it. All right, so I've added some stuff here. Let's walk through real quick what this is. So in addition to using that current branch, the next step that we have here is set up Python. And you have to realize that the runner, every single time we spin it up, is essentially a blank slate. And remember, we had to go through the process of installing that stuff locally. We essentially have to do the same thing for the runner. So that's why we'll have a step to install, to set up Python, and we can pick the version. This is a reusable action that's part of the GitHub community that we can use. And then we'll install dbt. We'll run that pip install dbt snowflake. And then lastly, we'll run dbt build, that final command to run our whole project. And in a normal environment, you're going to do probably a little more customization here. There's a lot of other things you could do, but I just want to show you how to get up and running with it. And the final part here is something we haven't really covered, which is this profiles dir, which is directory. And we're saying use the current directory for it. And the reason for this is because on our local machine, our profiles directory is in that hidden .dbt directory where we have access to it. But when this thing runs, so how does it know where to connect to? It doesn't have that information. So we have to create a new profiles.yaml for it to access. And what we can do is add it right in the main directory so that it's easy to use. But for now, what we'll do is start a commit new file. And now this is on our main branch. This went right to main. We could see it here. So let's go to our local here. We'll do git branch. We're on main, so I'll git pull. We'll get that workflow in here. And now what's also nice is we can just edit this in here and, have a version history of all this stuff. But like we said, we want to add a profiles directory. Let's create a new branch, add profile. And what we'll do is add a profiles.yaml to our root of our project so that when the automation runs, it can find the connection info we need. So from here, new file, profiles.yaml. And technically you could use this locally if you wanted. You could have it here and then just point that profiles directory flag to this, but by default, it's going to look in that other file. This is just another way. It's another flag that you can do to kind of point where you want this to be. So what we want to do is copy and paste our profiles.yaml right in here. Okay, so I've copied this in here to profiles.yaml and hidden my password, but we also don't want our password to be put in version control. It's not a good idea to do that. It's going to be plain text. We don't want people to see that. So there's a way that we can get around this to hide this essentially and use some GitHub features to hide our password as well and any other secrets. And I'll show you how we can do this. So I know we're going to hop back and forth a little bit here. So essentially what we're going to do is add an environment variable. It's called a secret within GitHub, and then reference it here. So let's go back to our GitHub repository and go to settings. And within settings, we can go to secrets and we'll select actions. And as it says here, these are environment variables that are encrypted, which is exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and add a new repository secret. It's good to name it all caps with underscores. So we'll have, we'll do two of them. We'll do dbt user. So perhaps you have a production user that you want to use, but not your individual, development people with users. And you can put the value in here. So in my case, this is the name of the user. But again, imagine you had some production service account or something. Add the secret. And the way that we can use this now in our profile is like this. We can replace it with this. And essentially what this is saying is take the environment variable, which is now in the context of this, the environment variable of your virtual runner, passing this secret into the runner. GitHub is setting it as an environment variable there. And now we are getting a copy of that. We're putting that here as well. So it's kind of getting passed around. And we're going to do the same thing for the password. So let's do new secret. And we'll call this dbt password. And then I'll add mine and then save and hide it. So I've now added that secret. So we have dbt password, dbt user, and we'll do the same thing here. Instead of user, we will do password to match the name. And now we can feel more comfortable pushing this to our repository and to have a version control for others to see because they can't see this. So now just to recap again, we have our workflow file that we've created. It's going to be triggered whenever we try to make a pull request to the main branch or when we manually trigger it. It's going to spin up a virtual runner on an Ubuntu Linux server and Linux Ubuntu latest version. It will use the existing repository that we're trying to merge, install Python, install dbt, and then run dbt build using these credentials. And it's going to use all this here. So imagine if you changed anything, it's going to run it all here. And again, you could specify this however you want. Let's go through the process of adding this. So we'll do git add everything, git commit message, git push. Okay, just like that, we've added this file. Let's go to pull requests. Now let's see if we can get this working here. So now think about, again, the automation here. We're developers, we're building, we're adding stuff. We say, okay, let's make a pull request. We add some more information here. Maybe you have a template here that has some good information. And as soon as we click create pull request, we would expect that actions workflow to be triggered and start to run that automation for us. So let's see. Moment of truth. And then here we go. Some checks haven't completed. We can see it's running this CI pipeline for us, workflow. We can click that link, or we can go to workflows. We can go into actions, and under workflows, we can see it's running. It's using this latest branch, so we can see that's the branch it's using. And it's running that one job. We only made that one job build. We can click on this and we can see the different steps. So think about it. Now it's automatically doing this. It checked out our branch. This setup job is just by default, it's put in here. It installed DBT and we had an error. What did we do wrong here? DBT password. I'm a dummy. I'm sorry. So I missed something here. I missed a step. We haven't explicitly told GitHub, the workflow, this runner, to add these as environment variables. So we have the secrets, but we actually haven't set the environment variables. We're kind of making an assumption that it is set, but we haven't done that yet. We've just created a secret. So what do we need to do? Well, let's go back to our local here. We're still on this branch. We can actually add to this branch and push at the same time, and it should help us out here. And what we need to do is add one more section here. And that's env. So what env is saying, within this job, what environment variables do we want to set? And here we can say we're setting dbt user, an environment variable called dbt user, as using the value of secrets, and then dbt password using the value of secrets dbt password. So we're putting these values into this, which is then getting moved over here. So I missed a step there, I apologize, but let's now save this and go through the same process. The struggles of doing this on the fly a little bit. So now we push this, we added the secrets, and right away it's re-triggering that workflow. So hopefully this fixed it. We can see for this change, it errored. But I actually think this is a good example because this would say, hey, something about your project is wrong. Maybe it's a failure from the model runs. Maybe your logic is wrong, or maybe you're missing something. So this is actually what you would want to see. And this is the value of having automation. Otherwise you could have missed that. So sometimes, there's silver lining in messing up on a course. Let's see. So again, it's going to go through the same process and set everything up. Fingers crossed. Well, it looks like we missed one more thing, and that is we need to run dbt deps as well, because we do have a packages.yaml and it's saying we need to run this dbt deps. So we do need to run that command. So back to the drawing board we go. And we could either A, run dbt deps here. So we could do this. Or we could have just got rid of the packages. All right, so we're back again. We can see we're running. And look, I probably normally would edit this out and redo it, but I also think it's important to see how this workflow looks. And this is in reality what you would be doing. You'll be making changes and you'll check it in. But the best part again about this is you don't have to accidentally push something through. This is automatically catching it for you before you get too far. All right, and this time now we can see it is finally running. So we got that to work. We needed that step. Success. Should get a green check mark, and there it is. All right. So now we go back to our pull request and we can say, okay, this check has passed. Let's go ahead and merge it. And we can feel confident that what we did there was correct and adequately checked. Now there's a lot more that you can do with that workflow. You can get really customized. You can target just specific models to be run. You can do something called Slim CI, which is a feature for only running on the modified model. So rather than always running every model, there's some functionality within DBT that will allow you to just isolate what has changed. So that's another really cool feature and something that would play well with the workflow functionality.